yes, indeed, are moving forward with Brett Maher despite those 4 missed extra points Monday night. McCarthy said Maher's already working out, going back to yesterday at the team facility with special teams coach John Fossil. Shannon, what do you think here, especially after that Monday night performance? Should they replace Maher?
I don't know how with the time they have, Skip, and considering that Justin Tucker isn't available. So any kicker that you might think of signing, Skip, when was the last time he actually kicked in a game? Okay, let's do one better. When was the last time he kicked in a pressurized situation, which is the playoffs? So now you're trying to bring a kicker in that probably hadn't kicked in over a year, and probably, if he haven't kicked in the playoffs in maybe 2 to 3 years, if he's kicked in the playoffs at all. So you're probably better trying to work out the kinks, although I ain't got no confidence in you. Hey, Dak, I'm telling Kelly Moore, hey, I need you to have about 5 or 6 two-point plays ready. Because
I agree.
Skip, the first time he missed one, they going from 2 from there on out.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the only contingency, the only contingent plan that you can possibly have. Bring some kickers in, maybe keep them. Now you have another game like this, Skip. I think you got no choice but to bring somebody in for the championship.
Well, if you have another game like this, you're going to be out of the playoffs.
You're right. So it won't even matter. But I just don't really know what other options that they have, Skip, considering that the kicker, there's not a whole lot of great ones available, and the ones that are available hadn't kicked in a very long time and probably hadn't kicked in a pressurized situation like the playoffs ever. So with that being said, I think you're kind of stuck with what they got, Skip. It's kind of like you have in your car. You just, if it doesn't crank the first 3 days, you're like, damn, I can't be late again for work. The boss already told me.
Agreed.
Boy, I sure hope this thing crank in the morning. Yeah. But I got a contingency plan. Hey, bro, can you do me a favor? Can you do me something to drop me off at work? But they ain't got no solid skill because they don't even have a lot of teams have practice squad, have kickers on their practice squad that you can elevate that's been kicking for you, even though it's not a game situation. But I don't think the Cowboys have a kicker on their practice squad. So going outside of that, Skip, and getting somebody to bring them in who hadn't kicked in a very long time, and we don't know if they've ever kicked in a pressurized situation, which is the playoffs, I think they're kind of stuck. They're stuck with Brett Maher at least for 1 more week. Yeah. And like you said, though, if he has a situation like this, you're probably going to go home because I think this game might come down to a field goal. And on a field goal, you're probably standing on the sideline, grit your teeth, and pray to God, please let him make this kick.
This is a very painful subject for me because you know how much I hate place kicking. I want it abolished. And now my little kicker has kicked me right in the stomach. And it drives me nuts, and it makes me sicker by the moment. And I can't fix it because the game is coming too fast.
Right.
It is a short week, for better or for worse. We're going to debate that in just a moment here. But because it's a short week, and because he did make his final extra point try, and because he didn't miss a field goal because he didn't attempt a field goal.
They wouldn't even let him.
I know.
They went for it on 4th and 4th.
But at least he didn't miss 3 field goals that would have counted 9 points as opposed to these extra points.
Correct.
But I know kickers because I've been around. I've known dozens of them. And they are strange ducks, to say the least.
Yes.
And once they lose it psychologically, they lose it, and they can't get it back. And my history is you have to cut bait and recycle. You just recycle. They might get it back somewhere else, but they're not going to get it back.
Hey, you can't swim. You're going to jump out the boat in the middle of the lake.
But because of the circumstances, think about what just happened. My team played one of its best games of the franchise history.
Yes.
It was a tour de force.
Yes.
It was a Super Bowl special kind of game where you said, aha, that's the team I've been talking about. That team could go places. That team could go all the way places.
Yes.
And yet, the kicker, the one I despise, not just him personally, but just the position I despise because he's not a football player. He doesn't play your sport. How he became this, I don't know.
This important.
Whose idea was it? Oh, let's have somebody that used to be that the actual football players kick straight on.
The quarterback or the lineman or somebody.
Let's do it. Lou the Toe Groza was a all-pro defensive tackle, and he kicked straight on, called the toe because he was really good at it. George Blanda lasted until he's like 48 years old because he could kick straight on with his toe first. And then somebody started saying
the soccer style.
Yeah, I think
Jan Stenerud was the first one.
I think what's his name? Pete Gogolak. I believe he was the first one coming out of, was it Cornell? I believe it was. And he was a soccer player who said, well, I can do this sideways and I can launch it, man. I can get higher than you can and I can kick it farther than you can. And all of a sudden it revolutionized because everybody needed a soccer-style kicker.
Yes.
And I'm saying they don't play football. They couldn't make your team if they wanted to. And why should they come out and, with a silly gimmick, decide games? Because they're going to have impact in the playoffs. They're going to win and lose a lot of games with the idea of kicking through this big H. Really, this big H with the two uprights and the crossbar? Who thought of that? I don't know, because it's really embarrassing for the game of football that you're going to decide the game like that. But I'm stuck with it, and I'm stuck with him because the game is coming too fast. And yet, let's just to frame this. I want to show you why they should cut him right now, but they can't cut him. But I want to show you that he actually missed 5 straight extra points, because remember at Washington, at the end of the half, when they had the one touchdown, that he missed that one. If we could see it, but this is what started it. So here's the first one, and he hooked that one. Oh, that's interesting. So that was a slight hook. And then here's the first one at Tampa.
Push that one.
You know, it was a complete slice. And then he sliced another one. The first one missed the kicking net and went in the stands. It missed the net. And then he tries to overcompensate with
somebody got another souvenir.
Yep, that missed the kicking net. And then finally, no, he hit at the top of the right upright. And, you know, here we go. Then he made the last one. Here's my point. This kid, I'm sure he's good to. Do we call him Maher or Mar? I don't know. I hear different words.
Maher.
Okay, I'm going to call him Maher. But the point is, he's the ultimate vagabond kicker saga.
Yeah.
Where you look at him, and again, I have respect for him because I look back at his Wikipedia before the show, and he actually played football in high school and was pretty good. He caught 10 touchdown passes as a senior, and they had a good team.
Right.
And he was the kicker and the punter. But and he's also honorable mention All-State in basketball. So he's one of the more athletic kickers, because a lot of them aren't athletic at all. Yeah. And he also won the state championship in the pole vault. He finished first. Okay, so he decides to walk on at Nebraska because it's the biggest school. He was in Kearney, Nebraska. So he walks on at Nebraska, and he becomes all Big Ten kicker and punter. Well, the punters are always more athletic than the kickers because they have to catch it and do they run with it sometimes. So the point was, he did both at a high level, but he still went undrafted. And like you always say, well, if they're good, if Justin Tucker is that good, you should draft him, right? And some, Janikowski, have been drafted in the first round. Okay, so walk me through this. So he starts off being drafted by the Jets. And they drafted him in 2013, and then they waived him in July, so he couldn't even make the team. And guess who signed him? My Dallas Cowboys. You don't remember this, but back in 2013, my Cowboys signed him because Dan Bailey was recovering from an injury in preseason, and then they cut him at the end of the camp. Right. Okay, so he goes to Winnipeg, which signed him and quickly released him. And he goes to Ottawa, and he actually has a decent year for Ottawa, but then they release him. And he goes to the Hamilton Tiger Cats. These are all obviously in the Canadian Football League. And he actually had a pretty decent season that got him a chance with the Cleveland Browns, who quickly released him.
Well, damn.
Okay? They quickly released him because he wasn't that good. And he goes back to Ottawa and has another decent year in the CFL. And then 2018, the Cowboys actually signed him to start the season. And in a big shocker, it was a big surprise, on September 1st, they cut Dan Bailey, who wanted more money, and they said, let's go with Brett Maher, okay? We've had him before, and we kind of liked him before. Let's go with him. And in 2018, he struggled some through the year, but he started making bomb kicks. Yeah. And in 2019, he actually became the first kicker in NFL history to make 2 over 62. He had 2 to his resume. And then the following week after that, he hit the franchise record kick against the Eagles of 63 yards. So he's got a thunder foot. Yes. He got a big leg. But in 2019, they lost 3 in a row. And on December 9th of 2019, guess what happened? They whacked him. They cut him. Wow. Okay, well, this is what you're dealing with, right? This is the same guy. They cut him and said, we've seen enough of him. Let's go forward. Remember, Kai Forbath. So they go with him. Okay, so then he goes to the Jets, and he got cut. And then he goes to Washington, and he got cut. Then he goes to Houston, and he got cut. Then he goes to Arizona, and he got cut. And then he winds up a year ago in New Orleans and had a decent year for them. And I told you he made those 3 field goals to beat Brady 9-0. Right. And yet they were so impressed that after the year, they cut him. And guess where he wound up back with my team.
Yeah.
But was he the kicker on opening night? No. He wasn't the kicker on opening night against the